Hey there, I'm Nina.
And I'm Derryl.
In this video series, we're going to take a closer look at the world.
Way closer.
We're going to uncover the hidden chemical changes that are responsible for the structure and functions of all living systems and support how we live. To understand them, we have to look deep inside.
From the macroscopic to the microscopic to the molecular and even the atomic scale. Today we're taking a close look at how carbon is transformed during everyday events.
Food, fuel, plants and animals, whether they're alive or dead, all contain carbon atoms and store or use energy.
We're going to do an investigation and look a little closer to examine what's happening on a very, very tiny scale.
Right, and today we're growing plants.
Okay, Nina, this investigation's about plants, and it's really gonna grow on ya.
Oof, that was rough, Derryl.
All right, I promise I'll turn over a new leaf.
All right, like Derryl said, today's investigation is about plants. How do plants grow? What exactly is going on when plants gain mass?
We want to see what's going on at the macro scale and understand what's happening at the atomic molecular scale.
First, we're going to investigate what happens to carbon dioxide when we leave plants in the light and then in the dark for 24 hours. Then we'll do a longer-term plant growing investigation.
As we do our investigations, we want to keep 3 questions in mind.
The movement question.
Where are atoms moving?
The carbon question.
What is happening to the carbon atoms?
And the energy question.
What changes in energy are taking place? Now, before we start investigating our growing plants, I've got a question. Do you think these plants are breathing?
We know they don't have lungs, but we can still check on how they're exchanging gases, like CO2, with the air.
We also know that plants need light to grow. I wonder if light affects their breathing.
To set up our light and dark investigation, we'll start with both yellow and blue BTB, and some plants. BTB is bromothymol blue. BTB changes color when carbon dioxide is added, like when you blow bubbles into it.
We can use BTB to see if the carbon dioxide concentrations increase in the air. We'll have BTB in a container with the plants. These investigations will each take about 24 hours. What do you think the BTB will indicate when we leave the plants overnight in the light and dark? Let's pause now while you make predictions about what will happen in both the light and dark plant investigations.
Okay, we're back. You've made your predictions. Now let's start with the light investigation.
We put the BTB in with the plants. And remember, if BTB is yellow, we've got a high concentration of carbon dioxide. If it turns blue, there's a lower concentration.
Let's see what our little plants did overnight while we took a break.
And here are our little green friends.
You'll notice that the BTB is blue. That indicates a decrease in CO2. Did that match your prediction? Where did the carbon dioxide go? The CO2 must have gone somewhere.
And let's talk about energy. Is there any evidence of a change in energy?
The plants were in light, and light is a type of energy. I wonder what the plants are doing with that light energy. Now, let's see if anything's different when we left the plants in the dark.
The BTB was with the plants overnight, and it started off blue. Look what happened. The BTB turned yellow. That means that there's more CO2 here than when we started. Did that match your prediction?
The CO2 had to come from somewhere.
Without light, it seems as though carbon dioxide increases. It's pretty weird. We sure don't breathe differently just because someone turns out the lights, but that's what the plants are doing.
Yeah, think about those carbon atoms. It looks like they're going into the plant when the lights are on and coming out of the plant when the lights are off.
Let's pause here while you discuss the results of the light and dark investigations. All right, now for our plant growing investigation. About 4 weeks ago, we started growing plants from seeds. From seed to plant, we've clearly had a mass change. Where is the mass coming from when plants grow?
When there's a mass change, atoms are moving from one place to another.
And in this investigation, we're focusing on carbon. Where are those carbon atoms coming from?
And finally, whenever there's growing, energy is needed. Where is the energy coming from?
Okay, Let's remember how we planted our seeds. And I won't say that I dig this part.
Thank you.
We started by weighing our vermiculite, which we used as our soil. Then we weighed our seeds.
We've made sure to weigh everything, vermiculite and seeds, to fully understand the mass change.
We knew the plants would gain mass because they go from tiny seeds to much larger plants. But will the vermiculite lose mass as the plants gain mass? Remember, we also needed to water the plants. We'll have to figure out how much mass did the plants gain that's not water. Could all those atoms have come from the soil? And how much mass did the soil lose that's not water?
Our vermiculite starting mass was 35 grams and 0.1 grams for the seeds. It took about 4 weeks to grow the plants, so prepare to fast forward.
Fast forward! Into the future. Those 4 weeks went by pretty quick. I need a haircut.
You really do. Now that the plants have grown, the next step is to dry them out and dry out the vermiculite. We don't want to weigh any water, just plant and soil mass.
What changes in mass do you predict?
And how is this related to the movement question, the carbon question, and the energy question?
We'll pause again here while you make your case. Okay, here are our mass changes. We started with 0.1 grams of plant seeds, and now we're up to 1.1 grams. That's a gain of 1 gram. And now for the vermiculite. We started with 35 grams, and we've lost very little mass. The soil is now 34.8 grams. And our data are right in line with the sample data.
So, the plants gained a lot more mass than the vermiculite lost. The plant's mass could not have come from the soil.
So the atoms that went into the plants came from somewhere else, not the soil. And if the plants gained mass, that means that carbon atoms were involved. But where did they come from?
So let's review. Plants grown from seeds gain more mass than the soil loses. When plants are left in the light, there's a decrease in carbon dioxide. But when they're left in the dark, there's an increase in carbon dioxide. Where is the mass coming from when plants grow? Where do the carbon atoms go when plants are in light? We're leaving with a lot of questions.
Hopefully we'll weed out any wrong answers, and you'll get all the dirt on carbon. You know, Nina, I think our relationship is really blossoming.
You do, huh? Okay, bud. See you next time.